So you are pro Ohtani. You are pro Ohtani.
Yes. I'm a Giants fan.
And that means you would like to acquire this man here in this month of July 2023.
Would love to see it.
Why?
Because you're not getting him on the open market. I don't believe that you're going to get him on the open market.
Can we get into
get into that?
Why?
Because you're not the most attractive destination.
Well,
Shohei Ohtani is already in Southern California, and the team that also plays in Southern California is better than you, and they're more equipped than you to win. So for me, the best way to get Shohei Ohtani to agree to be a Giant is by acquiring him and showing him what makes this place so special, because you don't get to see that from the outside. You love the skipper, Gabe Kapler, and I think that
I love how he talks.
Well, you like what he's done with the team.
Well,
they've done better. I think during his time,
he's done a lot more good than bad.
Better than their collection of talent would indicate that they normally would be.
He's done a good job.
And I don't think that you can see that from the outside looking in. You see it more when you're here and you watch it. The one thing about Gabe Kapler that I admire the most is his relationship with his players, because they all speak highly of his communication. He's got an S-ton of coaches. They communicate a lot. And for the most part, guys know what the expectation is. And I think if you're dealing with Shohei Ohtani, a guy who has very unique expectations, he wants to know exactly what he's looking at in terms of his responsibility. And I think you look at this team, this GM, president of baseball ops, the manager, all the coaches, I think that they've got the right stuff internally in terms of chemistry, clubhouse, and all the rest of it. And if Ohtani was here, he'd be able to see that more than he would be able to look at it from the outside.
I guess that's the question, and I'd call it the $1 million question, but it's the $550 million question that I want to know, and I'm not qualified to answer it. I'm qualified to ask it, and that question is, when you're acquired by a team at the deadline, do those 10 weeks actually help? Do they actually help convince you? And I guess that's an answer person by person.
Yeah.
Except for he's different in this scenario. There are free agents, and then there's the free agent. He's the free agent. In fact, he's the free agent of all time. So Shohei Ohtani, and I know this, I think we all do, but I promise you, CAA, Creative Artists Agency, they are bringing him to free agency. There will be no pre-deal. Not with the Angels, not with the Dodgers, not with the Giants, not with the Steinbrenners, nothing. There is no deal. They are getting to free agency. So if that's the case, then this whole thing is completely up in the air come winter. And I so far, and I will admittedly tell you, I don't know if I'm wrong, but I do know this. I personally reject the idea that the 10 weeks for an acquiring team is going to matter that much in terms of convincing him where to go next.
Matter that much is an interesting phrase.
Yeah.
Matter at all or matter that much?
Maybe,
because
even if it matters a tiny bit.
That might be all you need.
Maybe, but I listen, this is
that
the
to me is where it becomes an interesting topic.
It's super interesting. And again, I guess only he could answer it in terms of like, oh gosh, I went somewhere and I fell in love with it. You could also go somewhere and hate it.
True.
But there is one thing and one thing only, to me, that turns into an absolute atomic bomb disaster for the organization. They have spent 5 years rebuilding their farm system. Mission Rock project being built, absolute cash register coming through that building. And a big part of why they have moved all of their deck chairs where they have is to go after this guy. If you take 5 or 6 or 7 prospects and totally gut your farm system and you acquire him here in July of 2023 and he plays for the Giants for 10 weeks and then right after Thanksgiving we're still full and he announces that he is leaving in free agency to join the Los Angeles Dodgers, you are talking about a move that has set your organization back 4 years. That's the risk you're taking, and it is a real one.
Well, it depends on who the prospects are, and it depends on whether or not they pan out, because you're assuming that you give up 5, 6, 7 of your top prospects.
That's what they're saying.
And 5, 6, and 7 of them actually pan out. And we could look at their top 7 prospects, or let's look at their top 10. Of their top 10 prospects right now, guys who have not come to the majors yet, how many of those guys are going to be legitimate major league, good regular players?
Probably only 2 or 3.
Exactly.
But the bottom line is, but the prospect, even when he doesn't pan out, is still valuable while he's still a prospect.
But he's only as valuable as either what he does for the big club or what you can get for him in a trade. And I think about the aforementioned Beltran trade. They traded Zach Wheeler for Carlos Beltran, and at the time I was anti the trade because I loved Zach Wheeler. But even though I loved Zach Wheeler, you didn't know that he would turn out to be an all-star, which he recently was. I think he's a 2-time all-star. He's a legitimate...
He's an ace.
He's an ace-ish.
He's a...
I call him an ace-ish.
He's an A-minus.
He's an ace-ish.
Yeah, there you go.
If
he's an ace-minus.
Yes. He's kind of like if Jordan Poole is your best player.
Yeah, he's not a B+. I'll give him better than that,
but he's not an A. If he's your 3,
God.
You're a World Series
If he's
team.
your 2 or your 3,
exactly.
I love him.
He's an ace-ish is what I call him. But so you traded him, and he turned out to be that guy. And I think about it in terms of this year's ace-ish, Kyle Harrison. He projects to be about as good as Zach Wheeler. If I told you right now that he would be Zach Wheeler for the Giants,
oh gosh,
then you probably wouldn't want to trade him. But if he
not.
But if he is that guy, if you trade him and 3 other prospects for Shohei Ohtani, or 4 other prospects for Ohtani, of the other 4, maybe one of them's going to turn out to be that good.
But I feel like
it's a crapshoot.
Yeah, of course it is. However, they remain assets while they're assets. I feel like the conversation gets a little caught in the weeds when we go, okay, would you give up 5 players who you think might be good for the greatest player ever? Well, of course I would.
Exactly.
But that's not what we're doing.
It's exactly what we're doing.
No, you're giving them up for 10 weeks of the greatest player of all time.
Well,
10 weeks.
And I think a leg up on keeping him, but that's debatable.
And that's where you and I see it differently, even though we both admit there's no way for us to know if either of us, I have no idea what that actually does. I'd love to talk to Hunter Pence, who in my opinion is the greatest example of a player being a deadline acquisition, falling so in love with a city that he bought a scooter and never left. He never left.
Now he's a fixture.
He's literally a logo now for the damn city. You know what I mean? Fox News wouldn't come near that guy with what he says about this city.
Nice.
Right? So that's the greatest example. But understand that, Hunter Pence was never an A-level free agent or deadline acquisition. He's kind of a B+ level. The A+ guys usually don't stay. And Beltran didn't stay. Chris Bryant didn't stay. Randy Johnson back in the day didn't stay. It's more common than not that acquisition who's like, no, I'm going to free agency. The deck reshuffles come November. That's how I feel. And this is a lot for 10 weeks.